Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 6th of April 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So first off, apologies for missing yesterday's episode. Just didn't have enough time to record it. But of course, back today with a longer than usual episode, and there is a lot to get through. So let's actually get right into it. So I discussed a couple of days ago about this exploit that happened on MEV Boost, where someone was able to steal about $25 million worth of funds from a participant in the MEV ecosystem. Now, I also mentioned at the time that there was a fix that was put out by Flashbots for the MEV Boost relay software. Well, that fix has gone live, I believe, and it has led to some unexpected consequences here, some negative externalities. So, Buddha here from the Beacon Chain team said, it seems that the recent release of MEV Boost is having a negative impact on network performance. And then they continue by saying, back to building blocks locally. Why did we introduce MEV Boost in the first place? So the reason why there are missing blocks here is because the fix basically makes it so that solo stakers, I believe, are at a disadvantage because I think, from my understanding, it will take up to 3 to 4 seconds for you to know if the block is one that you should be proposing, so that this exploit can't happen. And a consequence of that means that people with lower powered devices may not be able to do that in time, and blocks could be missed. And that's why you can see here Mariano Conti saying that the effectiveness rating for validators has been going down a lot, now around 95%, and it's actually even lower than that on some of the services here. And yeah, this is the Radar.network website where you can see this. Now, this goes back to something that I've been saying for a while about how MEV can be an existential threat for blockchains generally. And this is one way that it can kind of play out. Like, this is literally MEV leading to network instability. Now, of course, this is not the core protocol itself, not the core Ethereum protocol itself. But this is the sidecar software known as MEV Boost that people are outsourcing their block building to, that is causing issues on the network. Now, if you were to build blocks locally, and if everyone wants to do that locally, we wouldn't be seeing this issue. So this is a direct consequence of MEV, which obviously led to the birth of MEV Boost, which led to this. And that's why I've been saying for quite a while now that we need to eliminate MEV as much as possible, and we need to enshrine things like MEV Boost as part of PBS, which is hopefully coming to the network over the next couple of years. But yeah, there's a lot of work to get there. And then Buddha also asked, why did we introduce MEV Boost in the first place? Well, we introduced it in the first place because MEV, it was a way to mitigate these negative externalities that could have eventuated from the MEV ecosystem. And honestly, without MEV Boost, I think we would have been much worse off than we are today. Block building would have centralized even further than it already has, and it would have been much less democratic than it is today. But it's not a perfect solution. It is definitely a band-aid solution in my mind until we can get something like enshrined MEV Boost, which is known as PBS. But that's still a little while away. So MEV Boost definitely serves a really great purpose at layer 1 Ethereum, but also at layer 2, and all the research and development that's gone into MEV Boost will be able to inform that, and also inform PBS as well, because obviously MEV Boost is basically PBS, just extra protocol. And what I mean by that is that it exists outside of the core protocol itself. It is a sidecar software. It is not something that exists in protocol, which is what PBS aims to be. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with you guys. There are some other fixes trying to be made in order to alleviate this issue of missed blocks and network degradation here. And I'll keep you guys updated on how that progresses. All right, so the KZG ceremony, as you guys know, is still ongoing, but not in a public contribution phase, in a special contribution phase right now. Well, CryptoSat here on Twitter said that they have successfully contributed to the KZG ceremony with a file that was signed in space. This is pretty cool, and this is what I meant when I said a few months ago that people can get very creative with the entropy that they submit to the KZG ceremony, and that's exactly what's happening here with signing a file in space. So I just wanted to highlight that. Just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was very, very cool. Something that you don't see every day, and literally out of this world, as CryptoSat says here. All right, so Rocketpool has a big upgrade that actually went through where they increased the size of the deposit pool from 5,000 ETH to 18,000 ETH in preparation for Atlas. Now, as I said, this has already gone through, and that pool already filled up pretty much instantly. I believe most, if not all, of the RETH premium has collapsed because of this, which is very nice to see. But there can be a premium still formed, from my understanding, if this if the pool remains at cap like it is right now. But as far as I can tell, the premium has collapsed a lot, and it's not as punishing, and there's not much of a premium left there. But I haven't checked on it lately. This is from this morning, so about 8 hours ago now that I checked this. But great to see this go live. As I said, this is something that was done in preparation for Atlas, which is scheduled to go live, I believe, a week after Shanghai goes live, so the 18th of April, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, definitely very excited to see this, and kudos to Rocketpool for getting this through, getting this change through, and also awesome to see it fill up so quickly. There is a lot of demand, I believe, for Rocketpool, and it's great to see that demand playing out in real time. All right, so something that Manifold Finance has introduced called mevETH, which is their MEV optimized natively multi-chain liquid staking protocol. So this is a new liquid staking protocol that's being spun up by Manifold Finance, which runs the Manifold MEV Boost relayer. They've been around for a little while in the Ethereum ecosystem. And they're saying here at launch, Cream Finance is actually migrating 25,000 ETH from the CR-ETH2 to MEV-ETH, making MEV-ETH a top liquid staking protocol from day one. I didn't even know Cream Finance was still around. They've been exploited so many times at this point. I didn't realize they were still kicking, but they are, and apparently they have 25,000 ETH that they can migrate to this service. So exactly what is this? What is this MEV-ETH service? Well, essentially what MEV-ETH is designed to do, it's been designed around MEV capture, employing novel and unique MEV approaches that aren't possible for other staking platforms. This is because Manifold operates the full validation stack, block builder, secure RPC relay, and validators. And it's also natively multi-chain, as I mentioned. And the goal, I guess, is to make it so that you can earn the most APY with Manifold, with MEV-ETH, than you can anywhere else. Now, this goes back to what I've been saying over the last few months about how we're going to see so many more of these liquid staking providers spinning up, and they're going to be specializing and optimizing in different ways, and it's going to lead to a lot of competition within the staking space. So very cool to see this from Manifold Finance. You can check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so speaking of MEV, Coswap has released a new product called MEV Blocker. So what is MEV Blocker? It is a free RPC endpoint that pays users to protect themselves from MEV across a wide variety of use cases in DeFi, NFTs, and dApps. Now, this has been made in collaboration with a Beaver Build and the Agnostic Relay, and a bunch of other teams have also partnered up with Coswap here. You can see they're all named in the YouTube description, in the Twitter thread here, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. But basically, the TLDR of this is, if you change your RPC to this MEV Blocker RPC, you are better protected against MEV. But not only that, and I think this is the key point, you are going to be profiting from MEV directly. So essentially, 90% of the MEV-related profits that are captured by the MEV Blocker RPC will be going back to users, and 10% will go to validators. So it's basically changing the incentives here around MEV and giving the profits back to the actual users, instead of all the profits going to the validators and some going to the builders and things like that, right? So people are going to be able to profit from potentially the MEV extracted from their own transactions, which is very, very cool. So just a great product that has been deployed out there. It is live right now, so literally all you have to do is go to mevblocker.io, and you can click down here, add to wallet if you're running MetaMask, and it'll automatically add it to your wallet, or you can manually add the RPC yourself here. Now, I wouldn't usually put my weight behind something that was brand new like this so quickly, but it's been developed by very reputable teams within the crypto ecosystem. Coswap has been developed by Gnosis, and Gnosis is a very reputable team, and all these other teams teaming up with them from day one lends a lot of confidence to this product itself. So definitely go check it out for yourself and add it to your wallet if you feel like doing that. I think this is very cool, and I think this is something that's new and novel that's come to the MEV ecosystem that will change incentives, and it's going to be really wild and really interesting to see how that actually plays out in the wider MEV landscape. All right, so an update from Coinbase here. So Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul, put out a thread talking about Coinbase's legal challenge to the sanctions imposed by the US government against Tornado Cash. So this is a 10-part tweet thread, which you can read in the YouTube description below. But these are basically the main arguments that they've put forward in basically the legal challenge to those sanctions, the OFAC sanctions that were put on Tornado Cash by the US government here. So great little update. Just a reminder that the Coinbase lawsuit isn't the only one. I believe there is at least one other that was that David Hoffman from Bankless is involved in. That's also suing OFAC over this. And there might be one more. I can't remember exactly, but this is the Coinbase-led one, which had a bunch of Ethereum community members as participants as well. So yeah, just in case you forgot about that, here's an update on it. And there's also this there's also a link here to read more about this. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so as of a couple of days ago now, Bedrock, Optimism Bedrock, is consensus and feature frozen. So OP Lab says here that we're committed to clocking 2 weeks of stability on Optimism Girly before we announce the official date for Optimism's mainnet upgrade to Bedrock. And here's the final L2 contract upgrade, which is linked here. So Bedrock is finally coming. It's funny, like I remember them saying that Bedrock would be deployed in late 2023, and that didn't happen. And then they said it would be deployed in Q1 of this year, and that unfortunately didn't happen. But yeah, they're very close now. So I expect it to be deployed at some point in Q2 of this year, so March, April, or May. I guess, sorry, not March, April, or May. Q2 is April, May, June. I think I said a couple of days ago I also included March as part of Q2. No, March is definitely Q1. So April, May, or June, and we're basically at the start of Q2, which means that they got plenty of time. But as I said, they're going to be doing 2 weeks of stability on Optimism Girly, and if all that goes well, I would expect a mainnet announcement shortly after that. So maybe we get it in May. I would say May, or maybe late April could even be a window here, but more likely to be May. And Bedrock brings with it a host of upgrades. You guys will remember I compared it to Arbitrum's Nitro release, which came out last year. In terms of impact on the network, it's pretty big. So very much looking forward to seeing Bedrock go live on the Optimism network. All right, so speaking of Arbitrum and all the drama that happened over the last few days, they put out a really great update thread today that talks about what they're doing going forward in the wake of the AIP1 mess. So they started off the thread by saying, with the Arbitrum DAO reaching consensus against AIP1, it's now time to incorporate community feedback and move forward with new AIPs and documentation that addresses key areas of concern. And the details are in this thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But my thoughts on this is that I think it's a really positive step forward. So what they've committed to doing now is basically being radically transparent, which was, I guess, like the main issue that people had with the Arbitrum DAO here, and the main issue that I talked about it being a communication issue. That's exactly what I meant, and that's why I think that they're taking that on board and being radically transparent about this. So how are they doing that? Well, there's been 3 new documents posted. There is a transparency report about the foundation's initial setup, which covers basically how the foundation was set up, you know, why it was done that way, what tokens were allocated to who, everything that happened before the token was token went live and before the DAO was put live as well. Then there's going to be AIP 1.1, which is lockup, budget, and transparency, and AIP 1.2, which is amendments to current founding documents. So those are 2 things that are going to be voted on, I believe, by the community. And these will be real votes, guys. This won't be the ratification. These will be real, actual votes by the community that will be binding. So really great to see that as well. Now, there's more details in this Twitter thread about this, and there are links to the AIPs themselves, as well as the transparency report that you can go read for yourself. So you can see here, let me see, I've opened up the AIPs. There's a TLDR for both of them, I believe, or for AIP 1.1, there's a TLDR because it's a bit long, and then 1.2 is quite short, and then there's this transparency report, which is on the Arbitrum Foundation website that you can go check out. So if you were concerned over this, and you are wondering what was actually going on, and you need more transparency into what happened with the Arbitrum Foundation and the DAO and all that sort of stuff, this transparency report is for you. And then you also have these proposals to go through as well. So I'm very, very happy that Arbitrum did this so quickly. I think this is going to put to rest a lot of the concerns people had around the Arbitrum DAO, and we can move forward from here now. And everyone that wanted to be part of the DAO and wanted to be part of the community can move forward, and Arbitrum can work towards regaining that trust with users. Because I totally understand that a certain level of trust has been kind of like lost here and broken here, but I strongly believe that Arbitrum and all associated parties such as Off-Chain Labs and the Foundation can build back better here and build that trust back up with their community and with the wider crypto ecosystem. So yeah, you can go check these out. I'll link them in the YouTube description below. All right, a new project called Astria has kind of come out of stealth, or introduced themselves, which is a shared sequencer network. So this isn't the first shared sequencer network that we've seen announce themselves before. I believe Espresso Systems is building one, and Eigenlayer also wants to build one. But these are a popular thing to build right now, because as we all know, sequencers on all these layer 2s that we're building are centralized, and to decentralize them isn't actually a easy task. And I covered the Espresso Systems document a few weeks ago, where it was quite detailed, and it goes through all the things that need to be considered when designing a sequencer network or a decentralized sequencer network, whether it be shared or otherwise. So it's great to see more projects jumping into the fray here. So Astria's so what is a shared sequencer network? Basically, it is a network that of sequencers that is shared amongst different L2s, right? Amongst different networks. So it's not just bound to one network. So it's not like it's just bound to the Arbitrum 1 network or the Optimism network. It can be used, or these sequencers can be used across multiple networks. What is the advantage of that? Well, I think the advantage of that is that it offers out-of-the-box decentralization and security and censorship resistance to these L2 projects, and the people running these sequencers can stand to make a lot more money, a lot more profit from it, because they'll be able to share in the fee revenue and MEV across multiple networks instead of just one, and it's much easier for them to just run one piece of software than trying to juggle multiple pieces of software here. So I thought this was just a really cool product that I came across, and they've got a really cool design that they're working on here. As I said, they're not the only ones doing this, but this is very much needed, and it can apply potentially to any L2 out there, right? Like it can apply to not just only L2s, but also, so I guess like true L2s, but also Validium type constructions as well, where anything that needs transaction ordering, which is pretty much like every network, right? This can apply to, and it's really cool to see that these things are already getting spun up, already kind of launching, and there's not just one of them, there's multiple solutions being worked on, because I think these things are going to be very big going forward. I think they're going to be a main focus going forward, and I can't wait to see how each of them play out. As I said, off the top of my head, there's Astria, there's Eigenlayer, and then there's Espresso Systems. I believe there's one other that I'm forgetting right now that I'm aware of, but I'm sure there's going to be others that come out as time goes on here. All right, so moving on, we've got an announcement from the LiFi protocol here that they have raised a $17.5 million Series A funding round led by CoinFund and Superscript. Now, disclosure, I participated in this round. It was done quite a while ago, but I guess they've just announced this this recently. This Series A round here, and there's a bunch of other VCs and funds that invested in them. For those of you who don't know what LiFi is, they are a cross-chain bridge aggregator. Their front-end interface that you can use is at jumper.exchange. It works really well. I've used it a bunch of times before, and I think that it's a really great product because there's a lot of bridges these days, and it's kind of hard to know which ones have the best liquidity, which ones will actually be able to service your request, and which ones can bridge the funds that you want to from whichever chain to whichever chain, whether they be layer 2s or otherwise. So something like LiFi, I think, is a very, very great tool for people to use in order to get the best price and know exactly where they can go to with decent liquidity. So yeah, congrats to LiFi on the $17.5 million raise here, and happy to be part of the round. All right, so a couple of updates from Euler Labs, the team behind Euler Finance. So they put an update here about the exploit that happened and what the recovery process was like and how they were able to get the funds back, which I obviously mentioned a couple of days ago that almost all the funds were returned. And there's also a plan for redemption for Euler users that has been published on the forum. So you can go check this out, and it'll run through exactly how each user of the Euler Finance protocol that lost funds will be able to get their their funds back. Now, as far as I know, this isn't live just yet. I believe it's in testing right now, but essentially pretty much, they've designed it in such a way that all users affected will be able to be made as whole as possible. So great to see this. As I said a couple of days ago, this is one of the better stories in crypto from when it comes to hacks, right? And I think that Euler Labs has set the bar now in terms of being able to do fund recovery. So anyone, I guess, like who gets hacked in the future should definitely be keeping Euler Labs and what they did in mind if they want to be able to somehow get their funds back as well, because I believe that getting the funds back, even in the most dire situations, doesn't have to be difficult, because as I've said before, there is, like, whoever does the hack, right, they have to cover their tracks really, really well, because you have a lot of really intelligent people who will very quickly be able to find you if they're incentivized to do so. And that's what Euler Labs did, right? They put up that massive incentive, that I think it was $1 million bug bounty program, or $1 million bounty program for someone to, or someone or a group of people to track down who did the exploit. Now, that is, as I said, a huge incentive. So other teams are going to do that in the future, since it seemed to have worked so well for Euler Labs here. And I believe that that's going to lead to more fund recovery in the future. Hopefully there aren't more hacks, but I mean, we all know there will inevitably be more hacks in the future. But I think Euler Labs has set the bar here for recovering funds. So just a great story. As I said, you can check out the plan for redemption if this affects you. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Lyra Finance has introduced Governance V2, which is a fully autonomous on-chain system that allows Lyra token holders to directly govern the protocol and treasury. So you can check out this blog post and tweet thread for a breakdown of what this is. There's also a TLDR at the top here. So the main features are that Governance V2 shifts from a representative council model to a fully autonomous on-chain system, empowering token holders to directly govern the Lyra DAO. Token holders can stake their tokens to receive STK Lyra tokens, granting them proposal and voting rights in the governance process. Delegation allows token holders to allocate their governance powers to others, fostering a more inclusive and efficient decision-making environment. Treasury management and decentralized development will be facilitated by Governance V2, enabling any group or individual to propose funding and contribute to the protocol. The transition to Governance V2 aims to improve dependability, security, and reliability, fostering innovation and paving the way for a more secure and dependable system. So it is really a full-fledged, massive upgrade to the Lyra DAO here. It's not just a V2 for the sake of being a V2. As I said, you can get the full details in the blog post and the Twitter thread. But this is kind of funny because I did say that I preferred the more representative council model, like when it comes to DAOs a few days ago. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this at the end of today's episode as well. But I don't think that we should give up on other models, other DAO models. I do think that there should be experimentation that happens here with these other models, even if, like, me personally, I don't think they're going to be a huge success long term. Even if I think that it's better to have a representative model, I'm happy to be proven wrong. Like, I'm always happy to be proven wrong about these sorts of things. But as I said, I think in the long term, a lot of these things will just very much look like centralized companies with they'll look like centralized companies or public companies that have a board of directors that makes a lot of the decisions, but token holders can also have a say in these things and vote on things. But in terms of being able to scale this stuff, you definitely need like a relatively small group of people that are able to keep track of everything happening and able to keep on top of things as essentially their full-time job, because you can't just do casual governance, right? Especially when it comes to financial protocols, and because you can kind of like use a real-world analogy for this of what happens with the real-world governance systems that we have today, and how I would call them casual governance, because most people don't actually pay attention to politics and all the issues at hand, and really a lot of it's decided by the representatives themselves, right? And whoever gets in power based on a number of different factors. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because I actually said I wanted to talk about it at the end. But yeah, when comparing these sorts of things, it's funny because there's so many different ways to do governance. And I think that there's going to be a lot of experiments that play out, and we're going to recreate a lot of the stuff that didn't work in, I guess, the non-crypto world when it comes to governance. But there are certain things that we can do differently because there are things like token holder governance. It is global. It's not just a nation state kind of thing. And there are different things to consider as well, like the fact that you don't know who's holding your tokens because it's anonymous, right, or pseudonymous, and there's all those types of considerations to consider there. But anyway, you can check out Lyra Governance V2 for yourself. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. All right, so a few people that I actually used to work with from Set Protocol here have developed something as part of a hackathon. So this was built at the ZK Hack, which was, I believe, run by ETH Global recently, or maybe it was run by Scroll recently. I'm not sure exactly who it was run by, but it was at a hackathon that they built this. And Brian here put together a thread saying, currently those who want to on-off ramp must register for a centralized exchange and incur long delays before money reaches your accounts, or use centralized fiat on-ramps which charge high fees. Alex, Richard, Brian, and Sachin here, who, as I said, I worked with all of these people at Set previously. They think there's a better way. So they've introduced something called ZK P2P, conceived and prototyped at ZK Hack. It's a P2P network that can be built on top of any Web2 payment rail without permission from the payment network itself. So here's how it works. On-rampers simply make an order stating how much crypto they wish to have and how much fiat they're willing to pay. Off-rampers submit an on-chain claim for an order that escrows crypto from the on-ramper and then sends a Venmo request to the on-ramper. The on-ramper fulfills the request, sending fiat to the off-ramper. Then the on-ramper takes their Venmo email confirmation and generates a ZK proof, which is used to unlock the escrowed crypto on-chain. That's pretty cool. Like, it's using ZK technology with the existing TradFi system in order to enable this, I guess, like trustless, I guess you could say, fiat on an off-ramp here. And as Brian says, this seems super simple, but there are some downsides to the current implementation, but they feel that a lot of them can be addressed in one way or another. There's a lack of privacy. The current implementation exposes your Venmo ID to basically everyone. Payment service exposure. Venmo could undo a transaction on their network and have their email server exploited or change their email template. Design optimizations. On-rampers must already have tokens on-chain, not extensible to other Web2 payments networks, clunky UX, etc. But then they said, with problems comes opportunities, and we'd love to chat with anyone who's interested in helping build this out and decrease our reliance on increasingly regulated institutions. And you can check that out here. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. But this is really, really cool. As I said, this was done at a hackathon, so don't expect these problems that Brian outlines to be fixed yet. But the fact of the matter is, just reading through these problems, I don't think any of these are showstoppers. I think all of these can be fixed. There are some inherent things, like obviously the fact that the Venmo side or the Web2 side is still centralized, but that's just inherent to how that works, right? That's always going to be centralized. But the thing is that it's still a massive improvement over what we have today, because it allows for a true peer-to-peer network of on and off ramping, which I think that there needs to be more focus on. A lot of these peer-to-peer networks have gotten shut down in the past because they were actually centralized networks that just acted as basically order matching between different parties, and they ran a lot of the escrow and stuff themselves. So essentially what you could do with an on-chain peer-to-peer market like this is that the escrow would be done by the ZK proofs here, and by doing so, it could become a fully on-chain peer-to-peer network with only the centralized part being the Web2 TradFi part. So everything else can be decentralized and trustless and hopefully private, and that way you can develop a fully peer-to-peer on an off-ramp network, which I think is one of the holy grail products, right? Someone can actually figure that out. I mean, if these guys can figure it out, if they can figure out how to build this at scale and make it private, I think private is pretty important here. But if they can do that, then it can become a killer product, I believe. But anyway, you can check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so just a nice little heartfelt moment today. So, Base, the L2 project on Ethereum, was gifted the Base.eth ENS name today by an anonymous stranger who shares the vision of decentralization and openness within the Ethereum ecosystem. And here's the email of that anonymous stranger that they sent to Jesse Polak, who is the lead at Base. You can read the email for yourself. Reading it just really warmed my heart and really resonated with me. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out here for you guys to give it a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But basically, the reason why this stranger gave this to Base for free instead of profiting from this, because they could have sold Base.eth for a lot of money, especially on the secondary market here on like OpenSea or something like that. They did it because they believe in the principles of decentralization and openness, and they believe that Base believes in those values as well. So very, very cool to see this. But yeah, you can read the full email. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. SuperFluid has announced SuperFluid subscriptions, and they say here, we believe everyone should have full control over their own payment infrastructure. That's why our free self-hosted open source toolkit helps Web3 services accept crypto subscriptions, eliminate merchant fees, and mitigate deplatforming risk. As a fully customizable toolkit, SuperFluid subscriptions allows you to build crypto-native checkouts and effortlessly automate recurring revenue. Streamlined Web3 subscription experience, any ERC20 token in multiple networks, and developer-friendly. So this is obviously something for developers out there to tinker with, but you can see here what this would look like if in checkout. So when you go to checkout, you can usually check out with like Google Pay or PayPal. Well, now you can check out with SuperFluid subscriptions. When you subscribe to something such as a Substack service, for example, if Substack was to integrate this into their service, you could pay for your subscriptions with SuperFluid instead of using one of those centralized providers. So very, very awesome to see this. You can go check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, finally, just wanted to have a bit of a, I guess, like few minutes on DAOs. I did a bit of a discussion about DAOs. I wanted to spend a few minutes on here. So this tweet, well, this meme was put out by the Twitter account Regen Spartan, not to be confused with Degen Spartan. But basically, this is a famous meme of a bunch of people on a boat, and there's a hole in that boat, and one guy is saying, guys, there's a hole in our boat, and then everyone else is giving their own opinion about the hole in the boat. Some people are saying, you know, can we please do without this all this negativity, guys? You know, what are you, a shipbuilding expert? If there's a hole, then it's supposed to be there. Technically, it's not a hole. It's a special orifice, right? And this is the kind of stuff that happens in a lot of decisions around governance within crypto and outside of crypto. Everyone has their own opinion on how to do something, right? Everyone has their own opinion on an issue that arises, and even issues as simple as there being a hole in a boat. That should be a simple fix, right? It's like, okay, there's a hole in the boat. That means the boat's going to sink. Let's plug the hole before we all sink with the boat. Well, no, it doesn't usually work out like that because everyone's got their own opinion, right? So that's what a lot of these governance decisions that we see inside and outside of crypto, and that's how they play out. That's why governance is so hard, because you have to input all these opinions, and then you have to output something tangible. And in order to do that in crypto is especially hard because it's done in a decentralized fashion, but even in a centralized fashion as part of democratic governance, it can be very hard to do as well. And we've seen in the US, right, a lot of the time, Congress is gridlocked because of this. And that means that it's very hard for them to legislate on things, and it leads to a lot of perverse outcomes and incentives here because of that. So I thought this was just the perfect meme to highlight just how hard governance is, not just for DAOs, but also in the real world, and how that we have a lot of work to do in order to scale up DAOs, in order to avoid these pitfalls, in order to avoid what is essentially bike shedding here, right? I think that's probably the biggest existential risk facing governance systems generally, and especially when it comes to DAOs. But I'll link the meme in the YouTube description for you to check out for yourself. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.